Good morning. My name is Grant Kramer and I'm a professor emeritus at the University of Nevada, Reno. Welcome to my series on my backyard vineyard.
Today is the day I've been waiting for. It's time to harvest my backyard grapes and turn them into homemade wine. There's something incredibly special about creating wine from grapes I've nurtured all season long. So let's get started.
Today is a special day. Today is the day of my first harvest of my grapes in 3 years of growing the grapes. So today we'll sit down and look at the harvesting process and also the beginnings of the process of making wine. So sit back, get your favorite beverage, and relax and enjoy this video.
When it comes to harvesting grapes, timing is everything. These grapes have been soaking up the summer sun and ready for picking. You want to look for a nice balance between sweetness and acidity. I have been monitoring the sugars in the grape over the last few weeks, and the numbers indicate that we should harvest the grapes. We will make final measurements of Brix, titratable acidity, and pH to see just how good I predicted their ripeness. These are anxious times as the grapes are prone to powdery mildew, insects, and birds. I have been fortunate that there have been very little damage this year. No mildew, slight insect damage by some unknown insect, and just a smidgen of bird damage.
So it's August 24th and my harvest is looking very good. I'm excited. Beautiful grapes. Here's the yield off of row 7 in the first year of harvest, or the third year of the vines. Quite a good yield. These vines right here, nice and healthy and strong. The rest of the yields are not going to be as good, but it shows the potential. And this is only year 3. They'll reach their maximum yields in year 6. So I've got some fruit to work with. Yay. Okay, my final yield. So about 1/2 of the yield was from that first row, and the rest of the vines produced the other half. So yields are very low in the first year. That's why we don't usually harvest in the second year, because there's very little. And this will obviously increase with time. One of these containers holds about 100 pounds of grapes, which I estimate makes about 2 cases of wine. So I'm guessing I'll have a little over a case of wine, maybe a case and a half to this year's harvest. So the process is we're going to take these grapes, we're going to put them in to the press here. There's a bladder in here. It's going to
While there are other methods for pressing grapes, the bladder press represents a technological development that results in softer wines, less harsh. It is a superior method to earlier methods.
It's going to press those grapes out to the edge. This string is going to catch any seeds or fruit that might try to pop through. The juice is going to flow down, go into this bucket. And once that bucket fills, I'll slide another bucket under, and I'm going to take that bucket and dump it into the glass carboy, where I'm going to collect my juice for now. And hopefully I don't have more volume than that. If not, I have another tank here, which I can put the extra juice in for now. And then we'll get a fermentation going after we've done all of this and we've done our measurements of TA, Brix, and pH of the juice. We put the clusters in here, and you can see down below that they will fill up this whole thing. And then we'll turn the water on this hose, which fills water into this bladder, and the bladder is going to expand, but I have to put a lid on that before then. And that will press it against the screen, squishing the grapes, and the juice will come flowing out into the bucket below. Filling it up to the top here, and then I'll put the lid on, And we'll pressurize the bladder with water. We're doing a whole cluster press here. You notice I'm putting them on their clusters. We haven't crushed or destemmed. We're going to make rosé today. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, I can push it down a little bit more. I think we'll put a little more grapes in there. That way we can get fewer presses, get the job done. Okay, we'll start there. Just keeps the juice from squirting out over the edge. And we have a pressure gauge down here, which I can look at here and slowly raise the pressure because I don't want to crush the grapes too quickly. I want to do it very slowly and let the juice flow out. So I've got a valve here. I'm going to turn open and I'm going to watch this gauge. As the bladder slowly fills up, the pressure gauge will start to get higher and higher. The pressure gauge is to judge how quickly I'm going to press the grape and get juice out. You can see the juice is starting to flow out here into the container here, and it's going to start draining. And we're going to start collecting the juice. And we better put it in the center. Pressure's at about 2 bars right now, so I'm going to stop it right there. We're going to hold it till it finishes draining, and then we'll release the pressure in here off the bladder by, we've stopped the water flow going in now. We're going to release water out this other valve, and the bladder will then shrink. And we can open this all up. Repeat the process by putting some more berries in there. Leave the ones that are in there because there's some that are still unpopped. I'll show you when we open it up. And then you put more berries in, press again, get more juice out. So we're trying to maximize the amount of juice we have and the few berries we got from this harvest. So we stop at 2 bars because we don't want to overpress the grapes. We press. So we stop the pressure at 2 bars because we don't want to overpress the grapes. If we press too hard, we'll squish the seeds. And squishing the seeds will bring out more tannins into the wine and make it more tannic. So that's not a desirable thing in most cases. Seed tannins are usually very harsh. Okay, so we pretty much finished at this pressing for this particular moment. So we're going to release the pressure by releasing this valve here. And the water's going to flow out down my driveway. And the problem, you could put a hose on there and drain it out that way. We're going to remove all of this. We're going to release this pressure here. There's a pressure valve here. It's a safety valve. If there's too much pressure in here, it can release it. This will speed up the loss of pressure in here to allow the bladder to shrink. So, oops, we're getting a little juice coming out there. I don't think we want that to happen. So, water's finishing. When this pressure gets low enough, I can take this off. If it's on really high pressure still, this is impossible to unscrew this butterfly screw, I guess that's what it's called. So when we open this up, we can see that our berries are crushed. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push these down. Now if we go through this, these are all pretty well pressed, that's good. But sometimes you find whole berries in here that aren't squished, and there's still more juice in this, you see. that we can press out. So I'm going to push these down.
Can you pull out unsquished and a squished one? Just compare.
I'm trying to see
Oh, okay.
something, but most of these have been squished pretty well. Here's one. Well, there's one that's not fully squished. Here's another one. Right here you can see on this cluster that's completely unsquished. So we're going to press them down again, down to the bottom. And we'll add more berries to this press and repress it again and squish some of these berries that didn't get squished. Okay, for my first pressing here, you can see that I have a fair bit of juice, more than a gallon there, and my 5-gallon carboy should only be 2/3 full. So that's 3 gallons at most that you would want in there. I'm clearly going to overflow that because you can see I have a lot more grapes in here that need to be pressed. So I'm going to fill it into this tank here, which holds up to 100 liters or 25 gallons. We'll probably only get about 5, maybe 10 gallons if I'm lucky, but maybe I'll get 5 gallons out of this. And that's 2 cases of wine right there. Yummy. I'm doing this very slowly again, just so that the grapes get completely squished and not mis-squished, so that we get maximum amount of juice without squishing the seeds, so that we don't get the harsh tannins in the wine. There it goes. You can see the juice coming here and flowing. We'll cover this back up to keep it from squirting out. This is a small press, but if we had a bigger press, these lids are very heavy, very solid. So I waited for the pressure to completely release because the water moves out of the bladder. You can see now the bladder's compressed, and you can see this space here, that's where the bladder had pushed all the way out. So we're going to lift this press grill up onto the garbage can to get rid of the skins and put them in the trash. We could compost them. Grapes are very acidic, so they can make good compost. I've got a lot of compost already, so I don't need them, so they're going into our municipal compost pile. And once we lift them up, we're going to scrape them out. You have to be careful because the edges on this press here are very sharp. You can cut your knuckles as you're pushing it out, so you want to be careful when you're pressing them out. We're just going to lift it carefully without hitting anything. And then set it there. Okay, we'll take these out of here and we'll set it back on and start the process over again. Nice. Pop that on. So I haven't even started the pressure on this press here. This is just the juice flowing out from the grapes, from the weight of the grapes. This is known as free run. It's usually considered some of the best quality juice that you can use for making wine. After that, once you press it, you get more harsher characteristics out of the skins and the seeds, but usually it's not very much. It's only when you overpress the grapes that you get those harsh tannins coming out of the seeds. You just open this valve just a little bit so you can hear the water flowing, and that's going to slowly fill this bladder, and we'll start to get the juice flowing out. So you have to sample the produce, right? So this is the best part, is tasting the juice. So we'll collect a little bit here, determine whether acids and sugars are good, what the flavors are like, and it's surprisingly sweet. It's much sweeter than your table grapes. Tastes good. I'm guessing here we have about 5 gallons of juice right here, right now, and we'll probably get another gallon or so we might have a total of 6 gallons here. So we'll start the fermentation here and then move it to the glass carboys. So we have juice here, and we're going to sample it. We're going to collect some. We're going to get an average value of all the juice. And this is enough, plenty enough for what I need to do over here at my little winery setup. So we have my digital refractometer here that we're going to measure the sugars. I have a pH meter here, which we're going to measure the pH. And then I'm going to set up here with a titration to do the titratable acidity. So I'll get 3 numbers of my juice, the Brix, the titratable acidity, and the pH, and get an assessment of the quality of the grapes and whether I harvested them at the right time. And that information will be important for next year, when I look at the quality of the wine that came out and whether I need to make adjustments. And I'll do that each year and take notes and put that into a notebook and then keep track of that. And over the years, I'll slowly be able to improve the quality of my wines. So this is a digital refractometer. We want to make sure we have it zeroed properly. So I'm going to use some distilled water here, and I'm going to clean it off first, just in case there was any leftover residue from before. Put a couple of drops of distilled water. We hit 0. Now we're ready to go for sampling the juice. So we wipe that off. We collect some juice with this dropper. And I'm expecting it to be about 21, maybe 21.4, somewhere in that range, based upon the previous measurements I made over the last few weeks. So we'll put a few drops in here. That should be enough. We'll do a read. 22.2, a little higher than I expected, but that's a good range for what I want to make my rosé with. I wanted between 21 and 23, so I hit the mark. Hooray! We have a digital pH meter here. It's all standardized already. We're just going to stick it in the sample here and get a recording of what the pH should be. Okay, so the pH is about 3.23. So I'm doing a titration for titratable acidity using 0.1 normal or 0.1 molar on this. It's the same sodium hydroxide. And I have a sample with 100 mils of distilled water and 5 mils of wine sample in it. And I'm going to titrate, looking at this meniscus, how much sodium hydroxide it takes to bring the pH. I'm going to see the pH here turn to 8.2 in my reading. And the number of mils of this sodium hydroxide then can be calculated as to what the titratable acidity is.
And the final numbers are 22.2 for the Brix, pH of 3.23, and we had 4.9 mils of 0.1 normal sodium hydroxide, which translates into 7.35 grams per liter of tartaric acid equivalents. If you want to know more, go see my titratable acidity video in the wine science section. Total volume was estimated to be about 5.35 gallons of wine. That should make about 2 cases of wine. Very nice. These are great numbers for making a nice rosé. I'm very happy with these results.
Okay, I love this book. This is a great book, From Vines to Wines, The Complete Guide to Growing Grapes and Making Your Own Wine by Jeff Cox. It's how I started, and it's still very useful, and it's got very useful information in here. So for example, on this page here, we have the pH effects on sulfite additions. We're going to be adding sulfite to my juice, and I need to know what the pH was. So I did a measurement of that, and it was at between 3.2 and 3.3. So we need to add effectively to get 50 parts per million sterilizing SO2, which is what I want. We need to add 1 tablet of Camden tablets, or we can add 2 grams of potassium metabisulfite. So I'm going to measure that here on this scale. I'll measure it out, and then I'll make it up into solutions, some warm water, and add it to my must, and that will protect it from oxidation and from the yeast that are already on the grapes and the bacteria that are wild that I don't want. I want to start my fermentation with the yeast that I want. That's going to give me a better quality wine. A little over 4 inches. So I've tared my scale to the glass container, and now I'm just going to pour in some potassium metabisulfite to 2 grams. Put a little squirt of water in here to dissolve it.
The potassium metabisulfite was added into the tank and stirred, and the lid was put on it to keep it airtight. The white plastic part in the lid is an airlock, which is utilized during the fermentation process to release the CO2 produced in the fermentation.
Okay, the beauty of this tank is it has a floating lid with an inner tube like this one that blows up with air. You pump it, and it can go down and hold in position, so I can have variable volumes in this fermentation tank. Okay, it's cleanup time, and I'm going to use a pressure washer here to clean all the devices out and clean up the mess and put it away for storage. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, then please like it on my YouTube channel, where you'll find other interesting videos on viticulture, winemaking, and plant physiology.
In my next video, I will take you through the fermentation process of my wine. I want to give a big shout out to my son-in-law, who did a lot of the filming for this video, Grayson Wilt. And now I will leave you with the last minute shots of the vineyard at the end of the day after enjoying a glass or 2 of Pinot Noir in celebration of the harvest. Hooray! I hope you have a great day.
It's the end of the day, the harvest, all the vines, all the grapes been picked from the vines. Quiet, serene. The grapevines are standing majestically, enjoying their freedom from the fruit. Beautiful.